For Koha Community GiftED, Koha with Metabase. It is a privilege for me to be able to introduce Ed Veal today from the Anna Public Library, who will be doing our gifted program for us. Ed has been my mentor in Koha for the last 10 years. He trained me when I first started at Bywater and is still my go-to when I have questions about anything open source. So, with that, I am going to pass it over to Ed, where he will talk to us today about Koha and Metabase. And our gifted series is aimed at users being able to share that gift of Koha back with the community. If you have questions during the session, we will monitor the chat and we'll make sure to leave a few minutes at the end to answer those questions. Ed?
Good afternoon, at least good afternoon for most of you. I don't know where people are, but it's afternoon here. Let me start by sharing my screen. Let me figure out where that is now. And which one do we want to share? That's the one we want to share. All right. So, I want to begin, thanks for the introduction. Let's see, where do we want to begin? Why are we talking about Metabase and Koha? There's some real benefits to, the marriage between Metabase and Koha. Metabase gives us the ability to create dashboards. We can import our existing data from other resources, as well as create custom interactive dashboards that allow us to collect data in real time. We use dashboards for everything from circulation resources to evaluating and looking at digital resources, also collecting information from our staff, whether it be about reference questions, the day-to-day stats, all of that stuff is collected, collated in Metabase, so we can look at all of it in one big picture. Why we chose Metabase for this as this tool. It simplifies your access to the data. Anybody can access data. They don't need to know the SQL. They can go into Metabase, choose the database that they want to access, then simply choose the tables and start linking things, joining things, playing with the data without any risk of manipulating the original data. They're just looking at it and analyzing it. Once again, I said there's no need for SQL. You can use SQL. If you already have SQL knowledge or those reports, you can dump those into Metabase and use those. There are some downsides to that. Once you've started a report with SQL, you can't use its neat editor. You have to stick with the SQL. So I tend to just start with Metabase and skip the SQL. I will go in and look at existing SQL reports and use those as a framework to build out a question within Metabase, allowing me to use that as the initial framework. Metabase also allows you to schedule reports, have them emailed out to staff that may need that information on any given time frame. Another neat feature that we liked was the ability to, once you have a dashboard, you have your data there visible, you can dig deeper into it. You can modify those questions. You can look at the data, in new light, modify it, look at different time frames, look at different parameters without modifying the dashboard. You can just do that, look at it, change it, and then go back to the initial dashboard in a very simple way. All right, so some of the dashboards that I have created that I tend to that I use predominantly. The first one is a monthly report. I've gone ahead and created a dashboard that is my monthly report. It's where I collect and put all the information that I want to share with um, the powers that be, the city council, my bosses, the public in general. We can use this as a marketing tool. There are all sorts of ways to use these dashboards. The dashboards allow you to input images and text and heading. You can use simple markdown language in your text to, make that text look good. So basic monthly reports. Another use is just looking at our data. I've created a dashboard for circulation data. This particular dashboard shows the basics, number of people using the collection, number of items that are being used or checked out at any given time. I've broken this particular one down by the current day, the week, the current month. So as you see, there's a lot of different things you can put on each individual dashboard. As we go on, I will, kind of dive into how you do some of this stuff. Um, Metabase is simple enough that my circulation supervisor has already started creating her own dashboards to fit her needs. Um, Before I get into this next step, do we have any questions that I need to address yet? All right, we will keep moving along. Getting into the meat of it, just building those dashboards, looking at your Koha data, that's easy top level stuff. The other things you can do within Metabase is import existing data from other resources. Say, for example, I want to be able to import information from Comics Plus, Cloud Library, whatever the resources you use. Very simple process. You simply go into Metabase and you would first start by creating a collection for that particular resource. Once you've got that collection created, then you go in and you upload the the CSV spreadsheet that you've downloaded from that resource. You can download those resources on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, whatever it is. Um, you have those resources, you import it in here, and you're ready to start analyzing that data. You have the ability to append. So if you wanted to use a monthly report that you have downloaded from, say, Cloud Library, then the next month you would go in, upload it, and because all of the headings will match, it will just keep attaching it to that same resource. So that resource can grow over time. Or you can have different data pools for a given fiscal year or whatever it is, however you want to break that down. All right. Now for the fun one. I am using Metabase to effectively replace the tick marks at the service desk on the piece of paper where you're tick marking all your different spots. The way I'm doing this is I have gone in and created my own data pool, and then I build actions. And by building these individual actions, it allows our staff to go in and click on a button on a particular Metabase page and add to a constant running total. So at the end of the month, end of the year, annual reports, I will have detailed breakdowns. Every state does it a little differently. For my state report, they're not interested in basic directional questions. They want reference questions, and they've given us parameters on what defines a reference question. So I've had conversations with our staff about how you make that determination. And so then what you would choose, whether it would be a reference interaction or just a quick interaction. I am very interested in all of the activity. Our library opened up last November, so we have a unique opportunity to start collecting data from effectively day one. And I have limited staff. So I want to know all of the actions that are being taken place at the reference desk, whether it's something as simple as where's the bathroom, where's the adult area, things that wouldn't be considered reference questions. I want to know how many of those questions we're getting, um, as well as the more detailed reference questions. So that's why I'm personally including that. And then I can pull those out, look at those separately, and see what days are busy, different things like that. So um, let's get into how you might do that. Um, it's an easy process, but it can be convoluted or complicated because there's some unique pieces of information. So, for example, the first thing you have to do is create a raw, plain CSV file with some basic data in it. So, the example I've got here is the one I'm using for programming, and we'll look at this a little later. I'm also collecting programming data. This is a fancier thing than the stats. So, what I'm doing here is I go to a text editor. You have to use a text editor. If you use Excel or even OpenOffice, it still puts things around that data that throws Metabase off. It will work, but sometimes you will get the fields will be interpreted sometimes incorrectly. So I just go into Notepad and type out the first line. The first line is going to be your headers. Oh, sorry. Go back. First line is going to be your headers. They're going to define the data. So I've got here, for example, I've got date and I've got a time note, title. I'll talk about what some of these things mean and why I've chosen them. Title, coordinator, age group, attendance, note. Metabase is going to interpret these things in different ways. It's going to interpret date as a date. So it's going to be looking for a date stamp. So in the second line, this is where I create my initial first row of data. You have to have an initial row of data for the import to work. So the second row is going to be that first row of real data. So I've created a generic date and timestamp. That's what Metabase is going to be looking for, some kind of timestamp. You don't have to have the time. I like to have it there. The next one I put is a time note. The reason I've done this is for this particular application, I am asking for a text time, not a true timestamp, because this particular one is for programming. And so I want to know, was it a 10 a.m. program or was it a 3 p.m. program? And if I leave this as just time, then Metabase is going to look for it to be an actual timestamp format. And that's a little more complicated for staff. Um, by making this a text field, I can then go in and create a drop down that has the different times that programs take place. Because we all have our programs at standard times. So I can create this nice drop down for them. The next one is the title of the program. That's as you see here in my screenshot, I just created a drop down of different titles. We'll get to how this is created later, but that's why, for the title, I just said program. Coordinator, of course, is the staff member. Age group, I just used age because we use generic age groups. And then attendance. This is a number. And I discovered something and I fought with this for a little while until we finally discovered what was happening. When I was importing my data originally, that first row, I put attendance and I put 1 or I put 0. Metabase will always interpret a 1 or a 0 in that initial row as a true false. So you have to use an integer larger than, two or larger. I always go with a two-digit integer because I am going to eventually remove this row of data once I get real data in here. So that tells Metabase that this is just a number. Then, the last one for notes, I just put text for initial, text. Create that CSV file. Once you've done that, you'll go in and import it. As I mentioned in the previous slide, let me go back to it. Or was it 2 slides ago? Yeah, that's the CSV file you're going to import. And it's going to be a slightly different process. When you are actually importing this, you are creating a model, or you're creating the data rather than just inputting it into something. It's done a little differently, and I'll show you that. I can't get good screenshots of it, so I'll have to show it to you when I start doing some live uh, demonstrations. Once you've got it imported, you have to find the name of that particular uploaded chunk of data. And it's going to look something like this. Program is what I named it, program data one, and then it has a code. You'll need that name. From there, then you go in and create a dashboard or a question. And you you know, start from there. I start with a dashboard because I want to talk about creating the buttons. Once I have that dashboard created, I will go in and there's an option on the screen. Once again, this was going to be screenshot. I was going to have too many screenshots. I just want to show you all. That you'll then go in and create the button by creating an action. The syntax for the action is very similar to how you create the CSV file. Your first row is insert this information into this particular file. That's why you have to know the file name. Once you've got that, then you can start building out that action. This next row is going to be your what your the data fields that you're putting the data into. Then the next is the values that you want to use for those. I always match those up as best I can, just for simplicity's sake. But as you noticed, it's got to have a particular syntax. You've got to have commas between, and then you've got to have the double brackets around your values. Once you've created that action button, then it allows you to go in and set the parameters. That's what this screen is. This is what the button's going to look like and what the parameters are all set as. All right, any questions yet? I'm sure people have a lot. I'm sure they're just not asking them yet. So that when you create the action, this is what it looks like. You have a field here that you put all of that information into. All right. So once you've done all of those steps, you end up with a dashboard that has buttons that then in real time, when they click on these buttons, then it allows it starts filling in that data, and you're capturing it in real time. All right, now we get to questions and time for me to do some live demo if people are interested in that. Let me get to Firefox. Let me open up Firefox. Is that screen sharing? All right. So here's my live dashboard. Now we've got some real stuff here. So you can see how these buttons work. For example, a reference interaction, I'm going to throw my stats off by 1. I think it'll work out fine in the end. You click on that, reference count, done. Reference count went up by 1. Very simple process. It actually looks just fine on cell phones, tablets. People, staff can go to these pages and input this stuff. the notes field or a reference question. For example, on the reference question, this is how that would work. I'd go in, put the data in here, choose what staff member I am. It doesn't automatically know who I am. There may be some way to do that. I've not ever figured it out. Um, choose the type of interaction it's going to be, and then type in your comment and then save it. You can define which fields are required, which ones aren't. You can hide fields as long as it's not a required field. If you hide a required field, you have to have some generic data for it. So let's come back to my home page here. And first create, let's first import uh, some data from a resource. So to do that, first thing I would do is come in and create a collection. So I'm going to create a collection and I'm going to call it InfoBase. Okay. Data from InfoBase, whatever. Then you choose if you want to embed it in an additional collection. I don't. I want it to be its own collection. So it'll stay right there. That's fine. And when I've created that, now I have an InfoBase collection that's empty. There's nothing there. From there, you come up to the upload to InfoBase, click on upload. It brings up your browse to the where your data is going to be. That's not what I want. I want to go to InfoBase and I want to use this. I downloaded all the data from InfoBase for the fiscal year 24-25. Mind you, we were only open for a brief moment. And I have an error. Fun. Column one taken. Well, that didn't work well. All right. Let me do this a different way then. Let me use a piece of data I know will work. I'll have to figure out what's wrong with that spreadsheet. But let's go back to Comics Plus, and I'm just going to use the Comics Plus one because I know it works. And all of a sudden it's there. So now I have this data in the wrong, I'll fix this later. But I have this data. From here, I can just simply look at it, um, or I can start analyzing it. I can come, I can come in here. Once we've got it open, I can start editing and start asking it questions. I can start filtering by, say, interest. What are the interests? I want to look at just comic, the Comics Plus things that checked out there. Visualize. Boom. I've got some information. I can then take this and build, a chart, anything interesting. Let me do it a little differently. Let's not filter. Instead, let's summarize, and let's summarize counting rows by age level. So now we've got the Comic Plus numbers that checked out based on the age group. I can come in here and let's visualize this again and let's modify it a little bit. So I can come in here. I can change it to a pie chart. In the pie chart, I can then quickly add the numbers. I can add labels. I can, add whatever it is we want. And then I can save it. I'm not going to save this one, but I can save it. Once I have done this, I've got some data here that I can play with. In an existing dashboard, let me pull up which one? Let's do monthly. In my December monthly report for December, I have information from Koha. I've pulled in gate count information. I've pulled in Comics Plus information for just the month of December. So I have a neat dashboard here that shows all of that I can once again use for marketing, use for transparency. Um, Coming back, let's look at programming. This is the one that I created. So I can come in here to this data, and in here, it's not in there, it's under more information. Under actions is where I create the actions. So I can come in and create a new action if I need to. That's where you would build out and type in all of this information. Or I can simply run the uh, action from here and go in and fill in the info, fill in whatever's pertinent for the particular program. And that would add it to that data. I don't want to because this is live data and I'd rather not create a program, although I could simply go in and delete the line that I created. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me show you all how to do that. So I'll come in here, create one. Let's say this program took place yesterday. Let's say it took place at 3. Let's say it was a snack attack. Let's say she coordinated it. It was a teen event and we had 25 people there. Um, they had fun. So we have this, we submit it. It is now there. So if I come into that data and simply look at that data, there it is. It's a new line in there. So if I go back to my programming page, this is going to be there. I don't want it there. I mentioned that first line of data that you create that you want to remove. I'll show you how to remove that. You remove it based on the line number. So if I come back into my actions, I can choose the delete. And by choosing delete, that was row number 8. And I delete it. And then when I go back, it's gone. Any questions yet? I know I'm going through this pretty quickly, but we're on a time crunch.
We do have two questions so far, Ed. The first was, do you provide or recommend a maintained data dictionary or ER diagram for Koha that works well with Metabase? I'll let you respond, but my response would be you can see Koha's schema. It's publicly available, and then you could also use the models in Metabase, which show you a live look, or the database feature, which shows you all of the tables that you have access to.
Yeah, let me just quickly, if I have a new question
Mhm.
and I go and I'm choosing I choose my Koha, then let's say these are all the tables in Koha. It's all right here.
Yeah.
So then I would go to say, I don't know. I don't know what I've got to prevent showing any personal or private information since this is
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
recorded. So I'm sticking with Biblio. Then from here, it populates all the things from all the fields. So I don't see the need for it.
Yeah. The second question is, how do you handle performance when running complex joins on large circulation or holds tables?
Haven't run into a problem. Haven't done things that are that super complicated. I think I've got one that I think has 5 or 6 joins in it, and I don't see a problem.
Thank
I'm
you.
not saying there's not one. I've not seen one. One thing that I have run into is with the joins in here, you can, once you've gotten to a certain point, you can come back in and then add new joins to it. You can take your results and add more joins. Sometimes when I've done that, it has caused some problems. Um, mainly in performance. It'll slow down because it's having to do everything and then it redoes stuff. But just main joins have not had a problem with. I have also pretty much stuck to left joins. Um, you can do other joins in here. Any other questions? I'm gonna not put Ian on the spot because he's not here, but I'm gonna tell you about a conversation we're having. We're trying to figure out a
Mhm.
good place to put um, some good information about this kind of as a clearinghouse. We need there's so much good information on the web about Metabase, but all the examples are business oriented and how to deal with sales and all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
They don't transfer really well if you're not, if you're not pretty adept at databases. Um, So we're thinking of creating a GitHub or something where we can put our, the examples of those actions, where we can have some of those examples that people can use for basic things. I'm very willing to share that basic CSV file that I've built for um, the tracking of statistics. It's really simple.
Yeah, that'd be great, Ed. If you share that with me, I'll share that with all of our attendees.
What I have done personally is I just have a OneNote notebook that has all the different things I'm doing so that I document the name of the file so I can more easily get back to it while I'm writing it without having to dig into Metabase. I can just pull that up, those things.
Yeah. Another question. Could there be a future option for an action template option included in Metabase?
That's an Ian question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, or the Metabase team.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
I I think that would be I think that would be interesting. Kind of a library of actions.
yeah.
Don't know how we do that. I there's got to be a way to do it because when you go into those actions and there was the delete and the add,
Yes.
those come with Metabase. So
Okay.
there's got to be a way to add that in there somewhere.
We'll take that question to Ian afterwards.
That'll make his brain hurt for a hour or so. Any other questions? And we can, of course, as a community, we can create we have the Metabase channel. We can dump stuff in there and we can start
Yeah,
sharing things in there. We can do it real low tech.
that's right. That's right. Well, Ed, this has been fascinating. I really enjoy seeing what y'all are doing to help staff track statistics locally. That's, right at their fingertips, and then utilizing Metabase to get all of the visuals that you can share with your team and your constituents. Thank you for leading the session today to talk about Koha and Metabase together.
Thank you.
Um, Our next Koha Community Gifted presentation will be in April, and that will be with Jason Robb from the Southeastern Kansas Library System, and he'll be talking about reports in Koha. That link is in the chat if you want to sign up. The next one will take place on April 14th. Thank you again, Ed. We appreciate your insight and all of your knowledge. Have a good day.
Bye bye.